Now, here are continuing on. Here are some key identifiers of the king of the north in Daniel. Yeah, those crazy mosquitoes flying around here. It drive me nuts. Anyhow, um, keep in mind this is in addition to, or more detailed than some of the points we mentioned in Daniel, then of 7 and Daniel 8, 23 through 25. Number one, rise to power through deceit and intrigue is mentioned at Daniel 11:21. Now, this is when basically the rise of the king of the north for our day. Okay, the king of the north gains control not through legitimate succession, but through cunning and deceit. He is described as a contemptible person who seizes the kingdom during a time of freedom from care, meaning he takes advantage of a period of complacency or false security. This freedom from care could be looked on at in different ways. One way is from the party goers' initial viewpoint in Israel on October 7th, 2023. The party goers certainly didn't care that they were only about 3 miles from Gaza. They're also there to listen to music and dance and put their cares aside for the time being. They felt as if they were secure, but they weren't. Another way to view the phrase freedom from care is the desperation of Hamas with the killing or assassination of a couple leaders and the loss of many fighters. They needed to fill the role. They did with Sinwar. So they just needed to get someone in there. That's another way of looking at it. Now, it doesn't mean that that would be the only, this is not on the sheet on the site. There can also be a freedom of care, which could be relating to a false hope of peace and security that is possible, that might fill a role in this. It might not, but it's a possibility. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you never know. With this time, critical times going between Hamas and Israel, basically, you could say Benjamin Netanyahu, there's a lot of pressure for a deal to get these hostages released. Everyone is looking for an end to the war, peace, and they want to do it in a secure way. So we'll see if there's another quote freedom from care or peace and security, or along that line of thoughts. We'll see, because we know that there's was it mentioning the cry of peace and security, then sudden destruction. There's that theme that is throughout the Bible, the Old Testament and New, whereas people might, they're crying peace and peace, but there is no peace. So we'll see what happens. Okay, continuing on with the paper, number 2, consolidation of power, Daniel 11:22 to 23. It says the king overthrows military forces and makes alliances to strengthen his position. His rise is marked by strategic manipulation and the use of deception to solidify his rule. Number 3, plundering and redistribution of wealth. He invades rich provinces, taking their wealth and distributing it among his followers. This action is designed to secure loyalty and consolidate his power base. Now, that would happen. There's no way that Sinwar could do that in his current state. But in the future, time will tell. Number 4, conflict with the king of the south, Daniel 11:25 to 30. So the king of the north engages in repeated conflicts with the king of the south. These battles are marked by tactical maneuvers, deceit, and shifting alliances. The passage details various military campaigns where the king of the north initially has success, but eventually faces setbacks. And he has a really big setback when he's destroyed at the end of Daniel 11. Number 5, desecration of the temple and persecution of the Holy Covenant. That's Daniel 11:31-32. Now, this is very important because that's what the messenger talks about. That time, the timer, the 3.5 years, 1,290 days. It's 3.5 years, along with the leap month they put in because of the lunar calendar. But anyhow, that's the time period before when Michael takes action. And most likely action against the king of the north. Wow. That was not on the paper, but anyhow, on the paper, one of the most significant actions attributed to the king of the north is setting up of the abomination that causes desolation in the temple. Now, this thought of abomination that causes desolation is actually the beast itself. The abomination that causes desolation was Rome in the first century. The abomination that causes desolation is the king of the north in our day. So something to think about. Okay, where were we? He desecrates the sanctuary, disrupts Jewish religious practices, and persecutes those who remain faithful to the covenants. Number 6, use of flattery and corruption. Daniel 11:32. The king uses flattery and promises a favor to corrupt those who violate the covenant. However, those who know their God resist him and remain faithful. Very interesting passage here because it talks about ones acting wickedly and those who know their God. The ones acting wickedly are actually not looking for God's favor, but actually their own. Number 7, wars and conflicts. Daniel 11:33-39. The king continues to engage in conflicts, both political and militarily. Spreading his influence and power, he honors a god of fortresses, the military, suggesting a focus on military might and the worship of power rather than traditional deities. Number 8, Daniel 11:40-45, final contacts and downfall. In the time of the end, the king of the north engages in a final contact with the king of the south and other forces. Despite initial successes, his end comes suddenly. He's defeated without help. I wonder why. Continuing on under interpretations in a second.